how you feel from seeing the planet going around it at those, really incredible speeds, but then looking off into the deepness and darkness of space and seeing, the stars in a different way and thinking of the vastness of space. And are we alone? And, you know, is God there? Is, all these questions that you have, and you have this landscape or this spacescape to have those thoughts.
Today I'm here with astronaut Leland Melvin. He completed 2 missions on the Space Shuttle Atlantis and spent over 500 hours in orbit. In addition, he's the only NFL player to ever go into space. Leland is an author and is also a prominent advocate of STEAM education, touring the country to inspire children to learn science, technology, engineering, math, as well as the arts. Leland, welcome to Nelda Live. I am so honored to have you.
I am so glad to be here too. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful podcast.
Oh, yeah. So, what we're going to do today is I would like to kind of set a scenario here. I'm going to set a little scene for us, okay?
Okay.
We have had an incredible few years for space technology. A private American company, SpaceX, is taking the lead
Okay.
developing new rockets and spaceships in partnership with NASA. We've seen videos of the amazing reusable rockets
Mhm.
that can land themselves. It's a crazy world. Private companies, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, and Rocket Lab are all innovating and making space travel accessible for many more people. All fascinating stuff. And some of the listeners might have seen you commenting on the launch of
Mhm.
SpaceX Demo 2 mission. That's the first time that U.S. launched astronauts from its own soil since 2011. A whole new generation seeing new things, right? What's been exciting for you about the last few years of space technology?
I know that I think the most incredible thing for uh, human beings to be able to go off planet from a company that was founded by a South African who wanted to support NASA because he wanted NASA to be successful and to do these incredible things like, going back to the moon and going to Mars. And so when you think about how international the space, getting to space is with all of these different people trying to, put their boots on another planet or another moon is what's remarkable. And to see the diversity of brain power, of race, color, creed, all these things happening for the betterment of humankind, not mankind, humankind, which includes everybody. So it's just such a groundswell of activity with all of these companies. I mean, Axiom Space is looking to build another space station, a private space station for sending people up to get married in space or to do research in space. And, they're sending up tourists like we had in the past to the International Space Station. So it's a really exciting time. And I think that, when we get, boots on Mars one day, it's going to be, and that's going to be sooner than we think, I believe. So I think that's one of the most exciting parts because we haven't sent humans to Mars before, and I'm pretty excited about it.
So, do you think space is because when I think about space, I think about the competition in the beginning. Like everything was like,
Hmm.
who's going to be first doing what, right?
Right.
But you're talking about something different. How different is it now?
Before, I mean, it's kind of still the billionaire boys club. I mean, you think about the people that are going to space are billionaires. I mean, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all of these, Richard Branson. I mean, but they're democratizing space also when a Japanese billionaire pays for 6 seats on a rocket to send artists, musicians, writers, people that would probably never get an opportunity to go to space if they're not in this club. But it's being allowed so that we can make more get more people to have this overview effect that most astronauts get, this this perspective shift that when you look back at the planet, you see colors, you see a sunrise and a sunset every 45 minutes. You are doing this with people that we used to fight against. We're breaking bread in space with people we used to fight against. So I think it's even more powerful that when space gets democratized and the price point comes down from $10,000 a pound to something that more people can afford to do and get that perspective. And I think that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is, no, we're not going to have like millions of people going to space in the next 50 years. So what are going to be the technologies that allow us to put on a suit, a fully immersive suit, and have these rich images from 4K and 8K cameras coming from the space station, or riding up on the SpaceX rocket when he sent his Tesla Roadster into space with Rocket Man. And so you're getting kids and people to see these images, and in an immersive augmented reality environment, they can maybe get that overview effect that many of us get going to space. And so that can also be transformative and impact the world, and get people thinking of working together and living in harmony together.
My family's been watching you on One Strange Rock. And I have another generation getting excited about all this. And it's fascinating to me the amount of technology it takes to do any of the space work, all the technologies, the innovations, the things that it takes just to be able to walk in space, be there, do all those things. It's amazing how many people are involved in it and how many ideas have to come together for it.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit then about your experience. So you were in space. So tell us, in case anyone doesn't know this, where you've been and what your missions were.
Okay, Nelda, I launched from Kennedy Space Center in February of 2008 on Space Shuttle Atlantis. It was STS-122, the 122nd shuttle flight. And we were going to the International Space Station, which is about 240 miles off the planet, to build the International Space Station. So we were adding this Columbus laboratory, which is that piece right there. And so I used the robotic arm to install that out of the payload bay of the Space Shuttle Atlantis. And once we installed that, I thought that was going to be my aha moment. But that paled in comparison to when Peggy Whitson, the first female commander, invited us over to the Russian segment to have a meal. She said, "You guys bring the rehydrated vegetables, we'll have the meat." So we floated over. We're breaking bread at 17,500 miles per hour, going around the planet every 90 minutes while listening to Sade's Smooth Operator. It was surreal. So that was my first mission. And my second mission was in November of 2009. And we went up to add some spare parts to the space station, again on Space Shuttle Atlantis. And so I tell people I only fly Atlantis. And we ate rehydrated turkey during Thanksgiving in space. And it was very interesting not to have my mom's stuffing, but she was there in spirit with me.
So what is it like being aboard, the space shuttle and the International Space Station?
Yeah, when you get to space, your body is trying to figure out what's going on. Your inner ear, your vestibular system that's, controls your orientation or your understanding of orientation is now trying to figure out what these little rocks are doing. So there's a little conflict between the visual orientation and then the inner ear orientation. And so all that data from your ear has to be rejected until you get there, and then through that transition, some people get sick, some people have to be put down. I was a crew medical officer on my first flight, and I had to give some people shots and put them to bed early so that they could recover from that. But once that happens, you are now floating these little micro accelerations. You push off in the seat and you're now floating ever so slowly, and then you bump into something behind you and now you're floating the other way. So these constant ping pong ball reactions that you're going through are really what you have to control, or you wipe out all the computers, or you bump into your friends that are doing delicate robotics with someone on the end of the arm. And so it's really body control is the key up there. And once you figure that out after hopefully an hour or two, that you can get to work and do meaningful work in building the space station or doing research or just getting to the bathroom, being able to do something without floating off somewhere.
So out of the two missions, I mean, are there moments that just stand out to you?
Yeah. I think, as I mentioned, that aha moment of us coming together with the first female commander, French, German, Russian, African American, Asian American. It was like a Benetton commercial. We were having this truly diverse meal with people from all over the world. And we were talking about our families. We were sharing a meal. We were looking at our respective hometowns. Over Lynchburg, I'm looking at Lynchburg, and then Leo's looking at Paris 5 minutes later, and Yuri's looking off to Moscow. And so we're able to connect with our families and our homes in such a short period of time while we're all, being a family in space. And I think that was an aha moment. Also, just looking out at the Caribbean, you almost need new definitions of the color blue to describe the different hues that you saw when you were in space. And I'll never forget. I mean, just looking out the window constantly, I could do that the whole mission. And I probably would have tried to if my commander hadn't grabbed me and said, "Let's go do some work here." But just the sheer beauty of our planet and is memorable. Having Thanksgiving in space was very memorable too, because when I talked to my family over the equivalent of a Zoom call, it was just very meaningful to have thanks, to give thanks, to have my space Thanksgiving family and then my family on the ground waiting for me to come home. And when we got home, we had this huge Thanksgiving dinner for the crew, down in crew quarters. And so that was all of our families together, celebrating this amazing event of traveling off planet and coming back home safely.
Ah, that sounds beautiful. So did you go on a spacewalk?
Nelda, I did not.
Okay.
I was injured when I was doing my spacewalk training. And so I never got a chance to finish that training. And I ended up losing my hearing for about 3 weeks, which kept me from getting back in that pool and doing the spacewalk training. So no, I did not.
So how's your hearing today?
My right ear, I have the speaking frequencies of what I can hear, and my left ear is pretty much non-existent. So I listen to vibrations through my body to give me some other information that I need to make decisions on hearing, I think.
Well, my original degree is speech pathology, special education, so I have a lot of audiology in my background. So I was wondering when I read that how your body has come through that. I'm just so glad it didn't stop you from going, though.
Well, it's funny that when I got injured, a lot of my friends said you should, you're never going to fly. They're not going to let you fly. So you should quit NASA, sue them, and write the tell-all book. And I said, no, I wasn't raised that way.
Yeah.
But, slowly the hearing came back. And then, the doctors didn't want me to fly because, hearing is very important in space, obviously. But there was one doctor, the chief of all the flight surgeons, who saw me clearing my ears when we were taking off and landing and just believed in me. He believed that, you can do this. And he signed a waiver for me to fly in space.
Wow.
And so, and when I was there, I was just hyper vigilant of everything and all the maneuvers, all the robotics, everything was perfect.
That's interesting too, because that's such a inspiring story to me when I think about those who have had hearing losses for various and different reasons.
Right.
To know that that you can go on and you can
Right.
overcome that. And that the body. I mean, the body is fascinating.
It really is.
Just really
If you allow yourself to be open to, figuring out that next step and how you're gonna exist in the world or in the universe with this having to augment yourself in some way to do what you need to do. And I think people give up and they lose hope and they don't have that perseverance and that grit to keep moving forward to figure it out, to solve the problem of your body. And I think that's one of the things that One Strange Rock did in talking about hearing and how your body is able to adapt and adjust if you give it all the tools that it needs to do that. So
Yeah, our brain has an amazing design to it, and the
yeah,
way that we function along with that is just it's fascinating.
yeah.
So, how did space change you? How did being there change you?
Yeah, that's a good question, Nelda. I think all astronauts, when we train, we have a certain perception based on other people's input of what it's going to be like when we get there. And we all have the idea of what it means to do your technical assignment. But I think once you do that technical assignment, how you feel from seeing the planet going around it at those, really incredible speeds, but then looking off into the deepness and darkness of space and seeing, the stars in a different way and thinking of the vastness of space. And are we alone? And, is God there? Is, all these questions that you have, and you have this landscape or this spacescape to have those thoughts, and it makes you feel so much more connected to the planet and the people on it, because we're going around it every 90 minutes. So we're flying over Afghanistan and Iraq and these places, and then back to New York and Virginia, and so quickly you're able to synthesize seeing all of humanity and how you fit into it. So when you come home, you want to do better. You want to help people. I mean, I came back from I think my first space flight, and I was in at the Cape of Good Hope in Africa, and there were some people that were walking up to the top of this mountain behind me, and one of them called my name in a German accent, and I said, "Who is that?" And I looked back, and these were some of the German flight controllers that were on console when I was in space installing the Columbus laboratory, which was the European Space Agency's laboratory. And so we connected in a way that I helped them keep their job security by safely attaching that. But we're all connected in some way universally. And that moment just really made me feel like, I have a family around the world, and that, we really do. And space brings us together in that.
Okay, so I'm sitting here thinking about how I've always been told, have your kids travel, have them travel overseas. And of course, right now
Mm-hmm.
we're in COVID, and that's fun. But and I really believe in that,
Right.
that it changes perspective. So I guess, how else has it changed your perspective? I'm just curious. Go a little further.
Yeah. So the preparation, training to go to space made me travel to, Germany to train in Cologne, Germany. I lived in Star City, Russia, which is outside of Moscow, for 2 years with cosmonauts, with Russians, with, people that, I ended up working with in space. And I met their families, and we played tennis, and we ate shashlik in the woods. And so I think the whole space community, whether you're training to go or you're helping other people get there, it makes you, I think, more of a citizen of the world, and how we all, coexist and get along, even though we have the reds and the blues and the greens, and we have all of these isms and divisions and things going on. But when it comes down to going off planet, everyone is supportive and comes around and says, "What can I do to help?" And on the steeps of Kazakhstan, watching Expedition One, Sergei Krikalev, Yuri Gudzenko, and Bill Shepard. I was right there watching them launch in a Soyuz rocket to the international outpost, which was only two modules. It was just two modules connected, fairly small. And they were there to help, bring this human presence. And it's the 20th anniversary yesterday.
Wow.
It's the 20th anniversary of this most, incredible thing, with 15 countries coming together to build that outpost. And so, whether you're flying, whether you're on flight, you're a flight controller and mission control, it's this perspective piece of, we come together to do these incredible things that are much bigger than our individual selves. It's not American, it's not Russian, it's people, it's humans in space.
Mm. So, knowing your personal story, I'm just wondering how important perseverance is to you.
I think, those, the perseverance and the grit, those two pieces of not giving up. I remember my mother read to me every single night before I could read, the little
Mm-hmm.
engine that could, I think I can, I think I can. And also Curious George, who, would sometimes get in trouble, but, he had the man in the yellow hat who was there to, help him get out of trouble. So those two books, I think about probably every other day about, I think I can.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can do this deal. I think I can do a podcast and speak to Zelda. I mean Nelda. So these are formative for me. And then the curiosity. I think that perseverance is rooted in curiosity because you're overcoming these things, but you're also looking past the things
Mm-hmm.
that you're going through to that next thing that you're going to be doing. And I think they're connected to get you out of where you are to a better place. And as kids, we all look up in the night sky, and as adults, we look down at our tablets, and so I think we need to look up more. If we look up more, because looking up helps you rise more. It takes you to a higher place. And how do we get there? Whether it's spiritual, whether it's to space, whether it's to the Mars or the moon, it's always looking up to something greater and bigger than yourself.
Agreed. As a kid, did you ever think you'd be an astronaut?
Not at all. When the in 1969, in July of 1969, when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, Neil and Buzz walking on the moon, and I was the kid behind the Sylvania black and white television set holding the rabbit ears. I don't know if you remember back to that day with the rabbit ears, but I didn't really see a lot of the broadcasts, and I was trying to look around, and every time I looked around, I was messing up the screen for my parents and sister. So um, I just didn't see that for me for whatever reason. I didn't want to be I guess, a military crew cut kid, but I knew that Arthur Ashe trained 5 blocks down the street from where I grew up.
Oh,
And my dad
wow.
talked about his intelligence, his perseverance, his excellence, his athleticism, and I wanted to be him. And so that whole moon thing was okay, whatever. But I know what I want to do. I want to be a tennis player. So I started pursuing that, and then got into science and engineering, and just went from there.
So, who were your big influencers when you were a kid?
My mom and dad, really. I mean, Arthur Ashe. I like that got me into tennis, but my father, he was a language arts teacher in middle school, and we built a we took a bread truck and turned it into a camper, a recreational
Oh,
vehicle.
wow.
So I learned how to be an electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, a chemical engineer that summer, repurposing a bread truck into a recreational vehicle. And I think about him having a vision for his family to get us. That was our escape pod out of Lynchburg to Virginia Beach or the Smoky Mountains,
Yeah.
and so that taught me a lot about having a vision. And if you see something that you want, you don't have to be that person to do it. You just go do it. And that's part of grit. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
grit this thing out and turn it into something that we want to use. That's only $500.
That is so cool. It is amazing how many people I know who have some kind of hands-on experience like that, that it
Right.
alters and changes so many, or sparks so many interests, maybe I should say,
Hmm.
in their
Hmm.
life. So that
Right.
is amazing. So let's transition into something that I know is kind of near and dear to your heart right now. You are a big advocate for STEAM.
Hmm.
So let's, if you will, explain to us what STEAM is and why it's so important.
Okay. I think many people will know what STEM education is. I mean, we're funding STEM. We're saying we need more STEM in our schools and our STEM jobs. There are millions of STEM jobs are not out there: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And we have focused on that so much that we've devalued. I feel we've devalued the arts, and we've defunded the arts. And everything that we do, whether it's building an international space station or doing a mathematical theorem, there's creativity involved in that. And so once we stop, allowing kids to think creatively and use creativity to weave into those, science and technology and engineering and mathematics disciplines, then we've lost. And so I think it's important that we think of our brain as this one big brain capable of solving problems, whether it's, painting what Picasso painted, because there was math in that, and there was, figuring out just where these colors are going to go, or these, these objects will go. And think of holistic learning and project-based learning, so that kids can do things that are hands-on and experiential. Like when I was building that bread truck, it wasn't like there was a manual for it.
Right.
And I think we are training kids so much to do things in a formulaic way that they don't have a chance to build and create and play and be kids. And so I think the A really helps with that. And, when you think about Lego, Lego has those Duplo blocks that are all about play and pushing these big blocks across, both sides of the brain so you can make these connections. And I think that that's part of experiential learning and connecting and building your body up to be able to solve problems. And so that's what the A is for me. It's language arts, it's culinary arts. I love to eat, right?
Yeah.
It's it's all of these different aspects of things that are involved in STEM. Because when you think about cooking, there's science in cooking. There's measurements, there's assets and bases and these different things. And so, but you might want to make it beautiful when you display this plate, how you plate it. So it's all combined and connected. And I think especially music, think about music. I mean, playing a concerto is nothing but mathematics and sine waves and overtones and constructive and destructive interference, and all these things are related. And when a kid can see the connections, because STEAM is really a toolbox, and you take out partial differential equations to solve this one, or you use this cobalt, or not, I'm dating myself, Fortran and cobalt, but you're using Java now to code this thing. It's all tools, and the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more problems you can solve.
I like that.
STEAM.
The more
STEAM.
tools you have in your toolbox, the more problems you
Yeah.
can solve. It really is true. I sit here and I'm thinking, I was often told when I would take personality tests and those type things, they would go, "Oh, Nelda, you're equally right-brained and left-brained," which means that you're in constant conflict with yourself. And I would go, "Really? I don't know that I experienced that." What do you think about those diagnoses? I mean, the way that our culture has looked at it in that way, right brain, left brain,
Yeah, it's funny, when I got to space, my first mission, I was interviewed by Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones called me, and we were talking about math and music. And he said that math and music are the two true absolutes that use both the right and left side of the brain. So if you know math, you really know music. If you know music, you really know math.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just talking about that two brain thing. But the way he talked about it, it was really one brain working in harmony to produce these, incredible, incredible things. I mean, Einstein was an artist in his own way. And you think about, the ultimate right brain, he
Oh
was
yeah.
creative, So I think the way we've depicted it is bad, because it tells kids that you can only be one or the other, versus, a renaissance or a polymath, or, whatever word you want to use to describe someone who's good at a lot of different things. But just to try and know that you can do both.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a kind of creative art that you work in?
I love playing the piano.
Ah,
Try to play every day. I do photography. I love photography. I'm constantly, taking pictures and making videos and doing things. I mean, this display behind me, as I keep referring to,
Mm-hmm.
my friend from elementary school, Stan Webb, who would draw every single day in class, was drawing something. He put this together for me. And I took the picture of the Andes Mountains and Chile, Peru, and the space station. And he found a picture of Mars and he made this collage of what space was like for me and maybe one day will be like for me.
Mm. Yeah, you think you'll go back?
Hey, you never know, never say never, right? Would you go?
Oh yeah, I would go. Yeah, I don't know.
Are you gonna go?
I was always that kid that would climb the tree and be terrified when I got up there. But I climbed it. And I also, like hiking up high, I enjoy that kind
Hmm.
of that whole thing. Um, but I don't think I'd be, good for a spacewalk. But I think it would be fascinating, to go. I mean, when you start talking about the colors, I'm an artist as well. I also taught art. I think life
Right,
is a portfolio. I have a
right.
varied of thing. When people say, "What do you do?" I don't. I usually say, "I don't know." But
Right.
anyway,
Do what you love, right?
yeah, I do what. But when you talk about the colors of blue and how there should be, new names, I think about that, and I think, seeing that in that pureness would be quite amazing.
The
So
color and the textures
yeah.
are just
So
wow.
so I work with encaustic and wax in the
Hmm.
pigmented wax. When you heat it with the torch,
Oh
it looks
wow.
so much like some of the nebulas and things. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a pretty fascinating
Mm.
fascinating thing to do, because I always think of space. Working on certain projects, it makes me
Right.
think of space immediately, and pictures from the Hubble
Oh yeah.
telescope. And yeah, it's just it's intriguing.
Incredible.
Yeah, just intriguing. So tell me real quickly then what you are. What are you involved in promoting S.T.E.A.M? Do you personally have a way that you're promoting that?
Yeah, so I'm working right now. I'm working with a company called Varsity Tutors, and I'm doing this. They call Star Course classes, where we're picking a subject around space travel. Last week, it was I was building a rocket racer car with kids from all around the country, and so
Really?
I think one class I had 16,000 people signed up to hear this talk, and they asked me questions, and so I have to tell you this real quick. I got to grab this because
Yeah.
uh, there was a little girl named Mila, and she made her rocket racer. She made a much better rocket racer. This is the one that I made. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
this is just a styrofoam meat tray from some pork chops or something, and you cut it up and you make the wheels of and a balloon and a straw, and you blow it, and this propels it. This is your thrust vector here.
Wow.
And so this little 8-year-old girl made her rocket racer, but she matched her balloon to her glasses because she wanted to be fly. So
Oh,
it's yeah, so that's something, because I did talk about, the creativity, the creative aspects of this, and put your signature stamp, put your artistic stamp on it. And she did it, so but working with them on my website, I've got lelandmelvin.com. I've got a whole section called STEAMography, and it's STEAMography. So starting with mine, and then maybe working with some other people that have done incredible things in space or in technology or math or arts or whatever,
wow.
and to showcase those things so that kids can see what they're capable of being.
Yeah.
And I'm also working with a company called Base 11, base11.com. We're trying to get 100,000 underserved kids into STEM careers and being entrepreneurs in the next 10 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we're on our way to doing that now. And we have a big conference coming up November 10th and 11th. And there's something called the STEM career playbook that I'm working on, where you know how to become a football player, a basketball player. You know the path to that. Just do that throughout school and then get drafted or whatever. But how do you become a scientist or engineer?
Mm,
What is the pathway to that? So
right.
I'm interviewing people like Gwen Shotwell from SpaceX. I'm interviewing scientists that are CEOs of companies, and like Rex Jevidan is the CEO of BWXT here in Lynchburg, It's a company that supplies all the nuclear fuel for
Wow.
the submarines and the aircraft carriers. And so, how do you get a job like that? What do you have to do? He was a physicist. What led him there? So we're showing how do you become these people in STEM and STEAM. What's that pathway for a kid in college or high school or even middle school?
So how do we encourage our parents to know about these things, or to to encourage their kids in STEAM? That's just wonderful.
Just do a Google search for STEAM and
Okay. All right, parents, do a
start
Google search
start
for
right
STEAM.
there. I mean, it's all about, life is about finding out what the opportunities are.
Hmm.
And it's so much easier to do that now with the technology that we have. And so, but you got to start, you just got to start, either go to the library, go to your computer, or go talk to someone that's done this stuff and ask them questions. There are ways to send an email to someone who inspires you, and maybe they'll write back to you, maybe they'll call you and say, this is what I did, these are the pitfalls that I had, I wouldn't do this again, but try this. Glean from the best parts of
Mm.
their experience and their journey to include in yours or your kid's journey.
That's so, I think mentors are so amazing, and we should really, really teach our kids and our students and everyone how to turn around and give back once
Right.
they've reached a certain level. Mentorship
Right.
is just the way to go. So right now during COVID, it seems to me we're so focused on Earth. So many times it seems like that our eyes are here and they're not there. So people, it seems like, maybe just have stopped paying attention to space. So how do we explain, or how do you explain, I guess I should say, how important space is going forward?
Yeah. I think with COVID we become very insular in our homes, and
Hmm.
just trying to protect, the people around us or the things around us. And I think, that's really important, because unless you know where you're going and what you want to do in a healthy and sustainable way, then there's no way that you can contribute to the bigger, community, and then city, and then nation, and then world and universe. And so maybe being a little bit introspective right now to figure out what are those things that you want to do for yourself. What's going to make you happy, what's going to make you healthy and whole, but then figuring out how do you replicate that out from your personal space to a much bigger space. And that's that part about looking up and thinking about who else is out there, and how do we come together with a bigger group velocity than the individual person can have to do good, and so through the means of technology, we're able to connect with people from all around the world right now. And we're holding
Hmm.
conferences. I mean, I'm having a conference next week that's reaching, thousands and thousands of people, and interacting and having virtual, chat rooms and all these things. And once we get a vaccine and come out of COVID, what will that new normal be for working and doing these things together? But like, you started this out with me being down at the Kennedy Space Center watching, the Crew Dragon taking Bob and Doug to space. And there were not a lot of people down there. We probably had 250, guests down there watching, but there were 10 million people around the world
Right.
watching us going back to space. And the letters that I've gotten from so many kids saying, oh, that was awesome, that was amazing, I can't wait to do it myself. Or from parents, oh my God, that was incredible. And now we're sending up November the 14th, or soon after that, we're sending up the
Hmm.
first African American male, Victor Glover, who has been through all kinds of things, but he's not going to be in space for 6 months. The first time that an African American person was in space for 6 months as a member of the expedition, or the International Space Station crew. And so that's a historical, monumental
It
moment.
is.
And it's going to be a Japanese astronaut, female, white female, and a white male, and an African American. So it's a very diverse crew
Yes.
working and living in space together. So it's a very interesting time.
Leland, thank you for being here. I'm going to mention, because I have my copy of Chasing Space. Uh, Real quickly, how the dogs get in the picture, because that's not normal.
Exactly. Well, they told me that when I got assigned to a mission, I could bring my family. And they didn't say two-legged or four-legged. So I snuck them into the photo lab and I had 100 milk bones thrown on the floor. They were chewing and eating, and I got my pumpkin suit on, and I started walking towards the seat, and I told the photographer, just start shooting. And they ran up to me, and one is nibbling in my ear, and the other is looking, and you got the picture.
Oh, it's just precious. Well, I want to tell you, as someone who can remember literally sleepwalking down the hall to go watch man walk on the moon.
To watch, wait a minute, to watch humans walk on them.
Yeah, yeah.
I got to tell you one
Okay,
quick
tell
little
me,
story
tell me.
about
Go
that.
ahead. Uh-huh.
When when I was giving a talk to a group of students, probably third graders, and I read Buzz Aldrin's quote, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." And I asked all the kids who wants to be an astronaut now, and only the boys raised their hand. And the girl says, it's not for me, it's for men. You said one small step for a man. So anytime we use the language that keeps someone from being part of the team, we need to really check ourselves. And so I'm sorry to correct you, but
No.
there's a little girl out there that may hear this and go, wait a minute, that's just for the men. Because Nelda said for mankind, not humankind, not womankind.
Yes.
So I think it's just important that we are really inclusive and intentional about our
Yes.
language that we
Yes.
use.
That's
So
true. I just remember stumbling down the hallway, and my grandmother was staying with us, and I crawled into the hide-a-bed couch that she was, so I was by the television so that I could see that moment.
right,
And I am so excited to know. I can't wait to take my girls to go see. Okay,
right.
I really do. I told my team yesterday. I said, y'all got to find out how we can be somewhere near where we can just watch, some of these amazing things that are happening now.
Yeah.
And so,
It's
thank you so much for being such an inspiration. So,
well, thank you. And I can't wait to hear you talk about your experience
oh
feeling
yes,
the vibration hitting your stomach when it's taking off to space.
that sounds amazing. So, tell us before you go where we can find you, what all's coming up one more time, and
Okay.
how we can all connect.
Okay. Go to lelandmelvin.com. There's a lot of information on my website, and I put a lot of things out on Instagram, which is just Leland Melvin on Instagram, and it's Leland Melvin on Facebook, and on Twitter, it's just astro_flow. There's a long story behind that. Can't get into that now, but astro_flow on
Okay.
Twitter, and you can find out what I'm doing and come join the ride.
Oh yeah, and as a former teacher, I want to know, are there things there for that we can send our teachers to and
Yeah.
connect? Okay.
Yeah. At lelandmelvin.com, under the STEAMography group, there's a lot of videos and things that you can show your students. And if you want to get Chase in Space and use that as I don't have a teacher study guide yet, but I'm working on it. And then there are some activities like this Rocket Racer was one of the activities on my website. The Rocket Racer, it's a PDF file you can download, and it's very simple, instructions and materials that are in an educator's budget. Because both of my parents were school teachers, so I know what an educator's budget is. I was one of those kids who were helping put the bulletin board together. So
Oh
but check
well.
those things out, and hopefully you'll come and join the journey and inspire the next generation.
Oh, well, thank you. Your life has been a hero's journey. I thank you um, for persevering and just for mentoring and giving back. I just really, really thank you, Leila, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, and Godspeed on your journey too,
Yes, you
Nelda.
too. Thank you, Leland.
Okay.